that, just to get us started, and then we'll go into some more details about what's going to happen today.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Chaz, for the invite and the honor to asking me to say the prayer. I don't know. I think Chaz might be older than me, so I don't know. He might be the elder today. Anyway, lam lam specia, at a sweet some cat Louis Glet, Kisut Kutiat Oxmakanik, Kotlik Skawiska Cloudla. Good morning, everybody. My name is Standing Grizzly Bear. Welcome you to this today, and thank you for inviting me. Just ask our ancestors to be here with us, and ask Grandfather, the Creator, to help us, to watch over us, to keep us safe, and to send his blessings to all of our people that are suffering, especially during this time. It's a hard time. I'm grateful for everything that I have, for the blessings that I have, and for being alive, even because I did have COVID, and my family had COVID, and I'm just grateful to be alive today. I'm grateful that all of you are here with us, and I just ask blessings on all of you, on all of your families, and thanks, and ask the ancestors to be with us and walk with us on this path that of our lives. Thank you for that. Lam lunch.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for opening us up in that way and kind of setting our tone for the morning. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go around in a minute and do some introductions. This event will be recorded, so if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to turn off your video. Yeah, but so a little bit about the National Tribal Climate Change Leadership Summit. It's a group that's convened by ATNI, the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians, the National Congress of American Indians, as well as some other groups. The purpose of this summit is to kind of gather a collective Native voice on what climate policy and climate change initiatives should look like moving forward. It's kind of one of the only events that does this. It brings together people from around the country to talk about what an Indian country we need with regards to climate change. Earlier in the year, we had a session on climate policy, which was based around the U.S. House's Climate Action Report that was put out earlier in the year. This session is going to be on climate resiliency or tribal resiliency, the passage of knowledge, and as well as some other things. And so we're really happy that you're able to join us. We have a great lineup of some people here. We already heard a little bit from Mike Durglow. He's quite impressive. In a little while, we're going to hear from somebody named Connor Ryan. He's a professional skier and inspirational speaker. Then we're going to hear again from Mike Durglow about his Eagles project, which you'll get more in depth around. And then we're going to have a panel discussion around what tribal resiliency is. That's going to be with Coral, Avery, Sammy Grinshaw, Damian Bell-Holter, and Denali Hajadan, who are all with us. And so after that, we're going to go into kind of a larger discussion and talk about kind of your takeaways from this meeting and what you'd like to see in your tribe or in your tribal community. So with that, I'm going to ask Coral to start some introductions, and we're just going to go around the room real quick. Say where you're from, what you do, and what you're hoping to see from today. So, Coral.
Yep. Hi, everybody. So great to see everyone here today. My name is Coral Avery. I use both they and she pronouns. I'm a Shawnee tribal citizen and work for ATNI with youth on climate change programming. So it's great to see all here today. Sam and I and many others on this call, Chaz and Denali, have put a lot of work into this event. So we're really glad to welcome you all here. And it looks like we don't have a crazy number of people here today, which is good because we can be in a closer community and get to know each other a bit better. So if you're comfortable using audio, feel free to. But we can just do some quick introductions, either out loud or in the chat if you'd like to say your name, your Indigenous affiliation, and maybe where you're from so we can get to know you all a bit better. And I'll pass it over to Chaz and then Denali to get started with introductions.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Chaz Jones, and I work for the Affiliated Tribes Northwest Indians, who is hosting this webinar and hosting the webinar, the Summit Session series that we have. We have a session that's not focused on youth, and then we have the youth-focused sessions as well that are happening side by side. So really appreciate you all being here. I'm here more in an advisory role and letting folks or helping Coral, Sam, and Denali, who's more recently joined us with planning these events, but I'm more of an observer and I won't be participating too awfully much, except to keep Mike in control. But anyway, thanks all for joining us, appreciate it. And how about you, Denali?
Yeah, good morning. Sorry if you see me looking down over here. I'm actually trying to coordinate a few different things right now, but I'm still present and listening. Adet, Denali, Hodgins, Ezra, Gitana Jeg, Sapnaknik, Yith Histon, Chugya, or Dinana Listo. Hi, everybody. My name is Denali Hodgson. I am Dig Hatan and Supyak from the villages of Anvik and South Naknek on the Yukon River. I am currently helping to bring this to life, but I also wear a few different hats. I sit as the Arctic Athabascan youth participant to the Arctic Council, and I am currently the executive director of On the Land Media, which is an online media platform created for and by Indigenous people. We do a podcast, and in order to really highlight our stories and our stories on the land, you'll be hearing a little bit more about that later, but I am excited to be hearing from each of you about resilience and yeah, brainstorming with you as well about how we want to be seeing policy enacted, especially under this new administration moving forward. Hajikistan.
Thank you, Denali. In terms of that organizing piece, look in the chat. Would anybody else like to introduce yourselves? If you don't want to do it over video, feel free to do it through the chat, but please do one or the other.
It looks like Keziah, if I'm saying your name correctly. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Keziah. I'm a member of the Chehalis tribe off of the Chehalis River. I'm living in Oakville, about 30 minutes from Olympia, Washington. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Great, thank you. Would anybody else like to do a quick introduction out loud? Otherwise, please go ahead and go in the chat so everyone can introduce themselves.
Christiana?
Yeah, Christiana.
Christiana.
Hi, I'm gonna tell you guys I'm gonna sign language, so helps whoever is deaf. My name is Christiana Edwards. I am Clinton Haida. I was born in Alaska, and that's all I know.
Yeah, thank you.
Would I be able to introduce myself?
Yeah, please, Jeremiah.
Hello, everyone. Jeremiah Newiswan. Natu Metnamane Wetnessim. Meshik Kaneo Awu. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremiah. I am Menominee Eagle Clan. And that's it.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
And then I can go. My name's Alexis Wagner. I'm Simsian Haida and Tlingit from Metlakatla in Southeast Alaska. Currently a grad student at the University of Washington, and I'm a BIA Pathways intern working with the Alaska region.
Excellent, thank you. I see Connor's joined us.
Yes, Connor has joined us. If anybody else would like to introduce yourselves, please do so now. Otherwise, we're going to move into kind of Connor's piece here.
Yeah. My Wi-Fi is weird, so it might cut out. But my name is Slam Dunkley. I'm from the Nanticoke Glen Island Nape Nation in New Jersey. I go to St. Joseph's University, and I run a panel discussion called Setting the Tone. It talks about environmental and indigenous injustice.
All right, very good.
Awesome.
Very cool. Thank you for being here.
All right, very
I
good. I
can-
think.
Oh.
Oh yes, Josephine.
I'm sorry. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Josephine Buck, enrolled in the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation here in Washington. I am also a student at Central Washington University for Environmental Studies, specializing in geography. And I'm just curious about how today's going to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. Anybody else?
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we're going to transition over to invite our first speaker of the day, Connor Ryan. Sam, would you like to do an introduction for Connor?
I think Denali had something prepared.
Oh,
real quick
sorry,
here.
Denali, go for it.
Yeah, no worries. So good morning, everybody. Again, I just wanted to also highlight the fact that we are recording this for a possible podcast episode with On the Land. And so before we actually have and highlight any of your voices and what is being said here today, we do have a strong and strict guideline. I call it an Indigenous consent form. And so you can find that on onthelandmedia.com. In order to have your voices, make sure that your voice is being included in the way that you want. If we do choose to use a soundbite from this session, we will of course reach out to you first, make sure that you can approve that before it goes live into that podcast stream. And so it will be, I'm thinking the podcast can be a conversation based. Sam and I have talked a little bit about doing a brief interview and then having pieces and segments from this discussion included in there. But we really wanted to have this session not just be accessible to you, but have it to be accessible to our other relatives across Turtle Island that might not be able to join us here today around this conversation regarding tribal resiliency. But again, I just wanted to stress the point that we will be reaching out to you in order to have your consent to use your voice on that podcast before anything goes out and is published. So with that, we will introduce Connor Ryan, and I'm excited to be introducing Connor. We met actually over Instagram about 2 or 3 years ago. I'm unsure of the point. Connor has been a great relative to me when I traveled through the lands that he grew up on in what is now known as the Boulder, Denver area, the home of the Ute and Arapaho and Cheyenne peoples. He's an avid skier and has been working on some pretty amazing projects really coming to light this last year. And I'm not going to continue to go on because I probably could go on for quite a while. But with that, let's welcome Connor Ryan.
Wopila Denali, Hala Natakayape, Chante Washte Nape, Shazupalo, Connor Ryan, Amichiapi, Maalakota, Hukpapa Oshpaye, Ikche Wichasha Mielo, Itan Heska. My name is Connor Ryan. I greet you all with a good hand and a good heart today. I'm from the Lakota Nation, Hukpapa tribe, and I'm a common man, grew up here in the Rocky Mountains, or as my people call them, Heska. And I'm really stoked to have the opportunity to speak to you all today. If you don't know about me, I'm a professional skier and an ambassador for Natives Outdoors. And that's kind of been my main focus for the past few years, putting all my efforts into what we've got going on over at Natives Outdoors and how we've kind of been able to break through within the outdoor industry in particular as a channel to really help, uplift Indigenous voices within environmentalism and within the outdoor industry. Obviously, all of the outdoor industry happens on our land, on native lands. And our goal has really been to build relationships in such a way that we can give people an understanding of where they are and the timeline that they fit into as they're recreating on the land, and help people to develop allyship in a good way by seeing themselves within a part of a much longer narrative that's happening on the land when we're participating in sports like skiing, climbing, mountain biking, or we're just out for a hike or going camping or whatever it might be. Really, I feel that that's an industry that as a whole is trying to connect to something that as Indigenous people we have an inherent understanding of that comes from our culture, and that within the Western, the settler culture, they don't have the same frameworks to understand what it is that they're interacting with when they're in these spaces. But there's a desire to connect to these same things all the same. And so at Natives Outdoors, we kind of have this twofold focus, which is on one side, we are, encouraging our people, Indigenous people, to reclaim our standing within this space that is the outdoors, the space that would have just been the space of life for our people. And, asserting ourselves within these sports and asserting ourselves within, this outdoor industry, if you will, that happens all on native land here on Turtle Island. And the other side of that then is, to give the folks who are in the outdoor industry, an understanding of what it is that we bring to the table and why, we're the relatives that you want to call in to these spaces. Because essentially, all of the folks who are within the outdoor industry are kind of reaching for something that we have a traditional understanding of, but are continually forced to put, our understandings through the lens of settler science and through the lens of the settler economy. And our goal at Natives Outdoors is really just getting folks to understand, like, you want us here and you want us to go around these barriers that you've put up within, your own industry, because we have something to offer you in a major way. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now in the ski industry, and that ripples across many other industries within the outdoor space, is the threat of climate change. And there seems to be this continual kind of battle of getting folks to understand that, like, you want to bring us in these diversity and equity inclusion spaces, not just because there's some moral benefit to you having done the right thing to welcome us into the space. You want us in this space because without our ecological understandings, you don't have a hope of defending your industry from the threats that are ahead of it. And so that's really my main goal, is to kind of close that gap and help folks within the outdoor space, if you will, to understand that, if we're going to come to collective solutions about protecting the land, that Indigenous voices need to not only be uplifted, but need to be centered. And the reason for doing that isn't solely for our benefit. The reason is for their benefit as well, because we don't have time to play around with experiments and science when it comes to protecting the land. We have to go with what has thousands of years of track record in what works for the land, and that is traditional ecological knowledge. So really my goal is to use film and storytelling kind of as my method to insert that cultural piece that's missing from these spaces. In skiing, there's kind of this continuous idea that there's something inherently spiritual about skiing in a way. It's and snowboarding and a lot of these outdoor sports, rock climbing. You see it in so many of the films and magazines and things that speak to it. People seem to derive a sense of purpose and a sense of healing from their experiences on the land. But I find that so much in those spaces, they're afraid to talk about it. And I think that's because settler culture doesn't have the same framework to understand it that we inherently have coming from indigenous cultures. And so really my biggest goal so far has been to talk to the mutual experience that we're all having on the land, but to give it the framework that I'm able to have from my ceremonies and culture as a Lakota, you know, so that people can really expand, like, okay, like I feel a connection when I'm skiing in fresh powder snow and I make a deep turn and the snow comes over me, and it's a very visceral experience, right? And my goal really is to make people understand, well, like, of course that's something spiritual, because you're connecting with a piece of yourself, right? You're 80% water yourself, and you're out there with the water in this frozen state where it's held by the mountains. And when the springtime comes, that sun's going to hit that snow and it's going to melt, and it's going to flow through the streams and down the canyons, and it will flow to the plains and the prairies where we live, where our cities are, where our towns have been, where people like, you know, my people, Arapaho people, Cheyenne people have been living for so long, and have had an understanding of what this is up in the mountains, which is that, you know, when you're with these elements that people seek to connect to through outdoor sports, you're with the elements of life, you're with the elements that are going to become your body. And when we can get people to kind of expand their awareness when it comes to environmentalism like that, and make them see the underlying, you know, threads of what indigenous cultures bond to the land really is, then we're able to get them to engage with environmentalism, hopefully in a much deeper way, to make people understand something that we've always understood, which is that, like, we're not, you know, protecting something outside ourselves when we care for all our relations. We're protecting our own life. We're protecting the life of, you know, the next 7 generations of, you know, ourselves as two-leggeds, and you know, all our relatives out there, and making people see really how intimate that environmental connection is. And so far it's been, you know, one of the most amazing experiences to me, because what I find over and over is that people are experiencing this and they don't have the vocabulary for it. They don't have the education for it. And that's the most beautiful thing to me, is that we get to provide that now as indigenous people. The things that, you know, are underlying all of our cultures, the value for them is now able to be perceptible to a wider audience in a way like never before. And I think, you know, storytelling and film is really one of the most powerful ways for us to open that door. And you know, it's really given me a new lease on what it means to be a storyteller. In Lakota tradition, you know, we have different traditions around, like, when you tell certain stories. After a hamblecha, like a traditional vision quest, we have a time where you speak to your vision, to your dreams. And, you know, after, you know, men would return home from battle, there's a time for them to speak to, you know, what happened in those battles. And we call that wakto glakpi. And like that tradition was a tradition of speaking about what it meant to fight for something and what you were fighting for. And for me, it's really taken on a new lease, made me understand, like, being a storyteller in association with your actions is what makes so much of what you're fighting for tangible to everyone else. And that is half of the duty of being, you know, a warrior for your people in whatever, you know, way that plays out for you, whether you're an environmentalist, whether you work, you know, on social programs within your communities, however you're fighting for your community, half of the battle is to know how to talk about it. And that is how those traditions live on. Because otherwise, you know, your action has to be seen by all your relations, but especially those human ones, for the reciprocity to be able to live on and generate and carry forward. And that's a huge thing that, you know, has taken me a while to understand, because some of the first, you know, songs that I learned for the first ceremonies I was in was all about, you know, learning to kind of sacrifice for the people and be humble in the way that you do that, and understand that, you know, that's inherent to being Ikche Wichasha, a common man, is that, you know, you do your duty, and being excellent is being common, being the highest, you know, best man you can be, and stating, you know, that that is common is what makes that the standard for your brothers as well. And so, you know, that really impressed upon me humility. But then in time, I realized there's such a valuable role to also speaking to, you know, the courage that it took to, you know, bring your actions into the world, or, you know, the vulnerability of sharing about your emotional experience with the land or your community or whatever that might be, that there's a space for that as well. And that space is also the warrior space. And that space is the same space that, you know, earns you the eagle feather as much as your actions do. And that for me has been a really profound thing. So at Natives Outdoors over the past few years, we've had the ability to be a part of some really awesome films. And for me, that's been one of the most resounding, you know, ways to get to live in that space and see those stories echo on and on. So, you know, we did a film with the Gwich'in folks. We did a film, it was called Welcome to Gwich'aze. And it was a film that, you know, was able to tour through Patagonia stores across the country and start to bring light, you know, to the situation up there in Gwich'in lands and Inupiat lands, and, you know, that whole situation with the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and the drilling there and all that. And, you know, watching how that got to snowball in more and more ways over the coming years, to where, you know, now we're starting to see this light of positivity and these resolutions and this hope for a better way around situations like that. You know, it gives me a lot of hope, because all that film really did was, you know, put the opportunity for folks up there to get to speak their truth of their battle that they were fighting. And they would have fought that battle all the same, but had we not, you know, empowered them in some way to tell that story, where would the reach of their fight be? Would it be in the same place it is now? You know, like, it's hard to say. And that's how I feel with a lot of things that have happened for me personally, which is that, you know, I got to do a film about skiing in the Black Hills. It was called Pahasapa, A Skier's Journey. And in that film, you know, I got to go up to the Black Hills and get to have the experience of what it was like to ski there. And it's not a place known for skiing. I come from the Rocky Mountains, and in Colorado, that's a place, you know, known for skiing. But having this experience on the land in the Black Hills, you know, I got to go there and talk about something that was more personal and more relevant in these ways. And to be quite honest, it didn't turn out to be exactly the film, you know, I wanted it to be. I thought I could have done better. And I still shared it nonetheless, and it's been out for a couple years. It got to be in some film festivals. You know, I got to watch the premiere of it with my friends like Denali, and you know, there was some really proud moments in there for me. But for me, the most proud moment was, you know, just a week ago, I was at ceremony with an uncle of mine, and he was talking about the film, and he said, for me, watching that film, that's land back. And I was like, wait, the guy didn't even say that directly at any point in the movie. I didn't feel like I even got to make my voice heard all the way. But just for him to see me there in that space, getting to do the thing, that was his interpretation of it. Was like, oh, this is land back. To get to see Connor doing his thing, his take on what his future looks like as an Indigenous person, but on his land and in his space. And that really blew me away and humbled me. And it made me see, you know, like, there's just so much potential in what we can do out there. You know, that first film was built on a really small budget. We filmed it in a single weekend. It was edited by a friend over the summer. And it just made me see, like, you know, the world is really, like, got a desire to hear what we have to present as Indigenous people. And that's so much of what the outdoor industry is. That's all these people that are, you know, romanticizing and seeking to connect to a little piece of a understanding and a way of life that is inherently ours. And it really fires me up to think like, you know, if we offer them a piece of our understanding that they should have, that solves so many problems for us. Because one, it can elevate us into these positions that alleviate problems in our own communities, you know, where we're able to have roles within these industries that take place on our land that we previously didn't have the opportunity to, because of the settler perception of who we are. And now we're able to shift that. But I think there's also, you know, there's always this like kind of constant feeling of like the settler desire to take from us. And a lot of times that happens and it plays out in the form of appropriation, right? And, you know, they want to take our cedar, they want to take our sweetgrass, they want to take our beadwork, our earrings, all these things, and they don't want the rest. But the truth of what I've really trying to, you know, understand through connecting to people that are athletes and are sharing the same experience of connection to the land that I'm experiencing through my sport, but they don't have the words to speak about it, is that really like their desire isn't to take from us because they're ill-intended. Their desire is to take from us because at some point they too were, you know, colonized people somewhere else across the world by some other force. And in that time, something was taken from them about their connection to the land. And they've always been trying to get back to it since. And so if we can offer them a different, you know, thing that they can have instead of appropriating from us, I find that that's so powerful, right? If I can say like, you know, you can't have my medicine, you can't have my songs, you can't have my beadwork, but what you can have is my understanding of how to relate to the land. Like take this, take my understanding of reciprocity and find your own way to do that. You know, take my understanding of Mitaka Yasin and find that in your own words, find that in your own actions, you know, because they drink the same water, they breathe the same air, and they're out here having experiences on the land. And, you know, we don't have any, there's no reason that we should want to change that, you know, because that bit of connection to the land that they're starting to experience, they're attached to it. And if we can give them that perception of like, okay, you feel this attached to a place because you climbed a mountain there, then imagine the attachment that you would feel to the place if your, you know, ancestors, your medicine men, your holy people have been going up on that mountain to do something for 1,000 years. Imagine if you've been drinking from this stream from, you know, not just today on your backpacking trip as you filled up your Nalgene, but imagine if you'd been drinking from this stream from generations. Then how would you feel about protecting it? Like you want it to be clean in this moment, right? Because that's your personal experience. But imagine what it looks like to gift that experience on into the future. And I think as people, you know, really are given the opportunity to have a true intrinsic understanding of what all that is, there's something inherently human about all of us that understands why that needs to be protected and what it means to protect that. And that to me is a really empowering thing to see over and over again, is that, you know, our inherent humanity, our inherent just beingness as people is always going to keep tying us to the land. And everybody wants that in some way. You can't deprogram that out of your DNA because we were all, you know, connected to some piece of land at some point in time that caused us to live on for generations. That's part of everybody everywhere. And so really my goal is, you know, to understand that these other people are all after that same understanding, but they don't have the framework that we have. And that framework for me at so many times in my life has looked like something that held me back. You know, that framework has been something that's like, oh, I can never fit into the world because I see the world this way as an Indigenous person. I don't belong in this space because they don't see nature how I see nature. But what I've really come to realize is that that feeling had me too scared to speak to what I was really feeling. But when I found the courage, when I found the people, when I found the community to empower me to speak to that, then it turned out that so many other people had been feeling just the way that I felt and didn't have the words for it. And that those words only came from you know, my language and my ceremony, and that these settler people, even if they felt love for the land, didn't have a vocabulary for it, didn't have a ceremony that had taught them how to experience and process those emotions of what it means to be in intimate connection with place. And I think that's really the biggest thing that I see us being able to provide as a collective of Indigenous people moving forward. It is just that, you know, like we have the answers. And really, like, the beautiful thing about solving these problems moving forward is it's this re-application process of putting what we know into action. And there's not some magical formula that we've got to come up with in some distant lab, you know, to solve these crises that are, you know, ahead of us in the current generation and those to come. Like, you know, I saw a meme this week about Elon Musk. He's talking about he'll provide, you know, all these billions of dollars for whoever can come up with the best carbon capture device, right? And people are like, are you serious? Someone put him in touch with Indigenous people, because there's no better carbon capture device than an old growth forest, right? There's no better carbon capture device than taking care of the buffalo on the prairie so that the, you know, root zone beneath those grasses grows 6 feet deep and is full of microorganisms storing that carbon. Like, the answer is what we already have. And that to me gives me so much hope, because it's not like there's some, you know, X factor that we'll never solve for in this equation. All that's really there, you know, to solve these problems is to illustrate to people through storytelling that this is what we've always understood. This is what we can provide. And I think the door is open for that in bigger and more incredible ways than ever before. And I think, you know, the biggest thing that we can do is, you know, really learn to continue to speak over and over to what the power of, you know, traditional understandings, traditional culture, and traditional ecological knowledge are. And I think it opens so many doors for us in the future, you know, like, as we've experienced this year of coronavirus and all these hardships, the one thing that I keep noticing over and over is every time I go to hike, every time I go to backcountry ski, every time I go out to go to the, you know, seek some solace in nature, this year it seems like every time the trailhead is a little fuller, the parking space to get into nature, there's always more cars there than there ever were before. And in this time of stress, there's a collective need to be with the land. And those crowded parking lots, those crowded ski areas, all those things, they point to this solution, which is that moving forward, all people need to find a way to continue to bond better with the land. And as we open the door to do that, the answer of who should be directing, you know, this revolution, if you will, of people getting back to the land, you know, is clearly us as Indigenous people. And those, you know, ways forward are more clear than ever. You know, we have Deb Haaland coming into, you know, being the one in charge of 70% of the public land in this country. So, you know, that's a Native woman in the position of stewarding so much. And it opens so many doors for us to understand, like, okay, well, we need more trailheads. Well, as we create more trailheads, let's talk to the elders about where they should be. Let's use traditional practices as we make more space for outdoor recreation. And as we do that, let's set up programs that bring Indigenous people into these spaces to, you know, be the ones who are now your park rangers or your, you know, stewards of the land, and whatever title we see that being moving forward. It creates this obvious channel for us to be the ones to do that, to be the ones managing these places in roles, you know, as big as Secretary of the Interior and as small as, you know, having the shovel and the pick in your hand to build trails. And, you know, I can speak from experience. That's a job I've had in my life, building mountain bike trails in Montana. And it was probably the most healing experience in my life to have that. And it's one of the things that's catapulted me to here. And, you know, now I get to have the experience of being on the land skiing most every day. And that is, you know, a dream come true. And as I look forward at what we can do with this storytelling, what we can do with how we use our voice moving forward, I think it clearly opens a lane for Indigenous people where, you know, we can be in these roles, and these roles of asserting ourselves into, you know, these outdoor spaces and these land management spaces. They not only create, you know, viable economic futures for ourselves, because, you know, the outdoor industry in the United States is a $1 trillion industry and is growing each year. The ski industry alone, the skiing and snowboarding alone, provides more jobs and creates more income for our country than all of the extractive industries combined. So the money is there, the future economically is there, and, you know, as we assert ourselves into those positions, the other thing awaiting us is not just that financial freedom, but is the freedom and the healing that comes from getting to work and be on the land every day, and how that will empower us for generations to come. Because that's something that just keeps me continually fired up, is every day that I, you know, go out and work as a professional skier, I'm more healed, I'm more connected, I'm, you know, brought to see ways in which, you know, the things I learn in ceremony and in culture and in tradition is real, and how it lives and breathes in actual experience. And I see the potential, you know, for all of us to have those kind of roles moving forward. Is, you know, there's so much of our land to steward, and there's so much of our people to heal. And I think like all of that happens through us, you know, finding a way to assert ourselves and showing that, you know, we are the missing piece for so many of the crises, you know, ahead of our world. And that bringing us into those roles to solve these problems is for all our relations. And that, you know, includes our settler, you know, allies and even non-allies that are, you know, in these systems of power. Is that, like, you know, that Mitaka Yasin, that applies to you, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a tree, whether you're a river. Like, I don't care. Like, that's something that's, you know, inherently been put in me as an Indigenous person. And, you know, I find that across so many of my friendships with people from other tribes and other parts of the world, is that's something intrinsic to all of us, and that these solutions for the land, and, you know, these solutions that will come from us boldly telling our stories, are for everybody. And once our story is told enough that that's heard and understood, then I think we truly have the opportunity to, you know, make a huge impact for the next 7 generations and beyond. And that's really, I think, the, you know, the goal of what all of us are trying to do. And I think it's something that each and every one of us is capable of through our own unique, you know, cultural lens and connection to the land. So.
Well, Connor, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation and kind of these wonderful things that you brought forward. You talked about the importance of land management as it comes through native lenses, as being one of the critical things that we need to see in order to preserve the ecosystems that are in place around the country and around the world. And I think that's something that cannot be understated. So thank you for bringing that forward and some of the other pieces. I think Colleen had a question that she'd put into the chat, and I just read that really quick. She says, as you speak about the outdoor industry, I wonder how you find the balance of skiing on and visiting sacred places while being respectful of those places. For example, Snowball Ski Resort is located on the sacred Tunuksulid that is significant to the, yeah.
Yeah, I love speaking to this one. This one's actually super important and close to me. Doko Slid is a mountain that I've climbed and skied myself. And we went there with a team from Natives Outdoors and a team from Patagonia. And we climbed this mountain, the other side of the mountain, in protest of the ski area, saying as Indigenous people, rather than give you the money to ski on your ski area, we'll climb this whole mountain ourselves. And, you know, we did it in a crazy storm with 80-mile-per-hour winds. And honestly, we loved it. Like, it was the most beautiful and empowering experience for me. And so, yeah, like that experience and us doing that led to Snowball now creating a relationship with our founder over at Natives Outdoors. They're under new management in a lot of senses, with all the shifts that have happened this year and things like that. And so their new management that just came in wasn't really even aware of the whole, I don't know how you would want to put it, like PR nightmare that is, you know, their practices.
Connor, you just muted yourself.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so they weren't quite aware of, you know, the situation that they had going on as this new management came in. And now moving forward, they're working with us at Natives Outdoors to talk about what it is they can do to, you know, move more sustainably in the future and address those issues. And so I think that really speaks to the power of what we're able to do, which is that, like, as new management came into that mountain, they knew one of the first things they wanted to do was work with Natives Outdoors, because we've established ourselves in that area. And we said, if you want to work with us, we got to start looking at these kind of issues. And I think that's exactly the kind of leverage that we can create through storytelling. Is like, if you know, as the corporate boogeyman that's out there in whatever form, that I'm Connor Ryan and I'm a professional skier, and Patagonia and REI and all these different brands are also behind my platform, and all of a sudden you're working against what it is that I'm trying to do, and, you know, I'm creating my own, you know, platform and movement and momentum within the industry, then all of a sudden you're much more likely to, you know, want to change direction and change course. And that's been our continual experience at Natives Outdoors, is if we can bond with people through our common bond of our experiences on the land, then we're really empowered to have a different sense of authority. You know, when we did that story on Doko Slid, we brought a world famous pro snowboarder with us. And so now one of the most famous pro snowboarders is saying, well, I won't ski snowball either because of what they're doing. And that kind of chain reaction of reciprocity through relationship echoes through an industry the same way that it does through an ecosystem. And I think that's really the power of asserting ourselves and using story as warriors.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and thank you for the outlining the way in which change can be made, as well as others. And thank you for joining us today. It's been really great to hear from you, and wonderful. I think that we're going to go into a break here for a couple minutes, unless anybody has any other questions that are hanging around. But if you'd like to ask some more questions, I think Connor will be with us for a few more minutes. If not, we're going to come back at noon. And then hear from the wonderful Mike Durgala. So thank you all.
Are there any other questions for Connor? Connor, I was just wondering, you just alluded to it briefly about your sponsors empowering you as a Native person to support your ideals. Do you feel like that is something you had to push strongly for? Or is this just natural for them to do so? Are there opportunities to further, for the outdoor sponsors to further empower Native youth?
Yeah, I mean, I think really it's one of those things where they've kind of always wanted to do better in a lot of ways and haven't had clear lanes as how to do it. Like when I work with Solomon, and when I first started working with Solomon, one of the immediate things that they wanted to do was like support a ski program for Native youth. And that was one of their desires right away. But they had no idea how they would do that. And so it takes like, and so now I'm working on setting up a program so that not only Solomon, but other corporate groups can donate and be a part of that. And so I think it kind of takes like this continual, like, it's not so much that you have to like sell them on the idea. It's more that you got to present a channel in which the energy can flow, if that makes sense. Like you have to direct their intentions, because there's a lot of money out there and there's a lot of well-intended people out there, but most of them are not educated enough on Indigenous issues to really make an impact. So you have to simultaneously educate them on the parts that they need to be educated on, and also provide them a lane in which they can operate. Because it's not going to go well for Solomon to just like start randomly reaching out to a bunch of different tribes and being like, well, you're near a mountain, can we help you ski? Like it really takes like that knowledge from within the community to identify the needs of both sides and kind of make that come together. And I think the other thing that's helped a lot was, for me, I had a couple breakthrough film pieces that really made the standard skier, who's typically white and male and has quite a bit of privilege, understand that like he and I, or you know, he and Denali or whoever are having a very similar experience in these places, but that as Native skiers we can speak to it in a better way, and that they want to hear more of what we have to say. That's been a huge thing that's empowered my career, is people just wanting to hear more. And that's been a really beautiful thing. And I think there's a big desire for that. And it's just kind of learning how to keep connecting those two different sides and how to personally be bridges for that.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And yeah, I was going to say that affiliated tribes, Northwest Indians, would, I'm sure, love to partner and work with you to help further your cause as well, if that would be beneficial.
Definitely.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, just on a final note, you know, there's a lot of different ways that people can get involved in order to start building these conversations with the outdoor industry as well. You know, Connor has spoken a little bit to his work with Natives Outdoors, which has built a pretty amazing and astounding outdoor ambassador program for us as Indigenous people. There's also a Native Women's Wilderness with Jalen Goff, who is Dene, Jolie, who is an amazing Indigenous woman, who does Indigenous women hike in Payahunadu, otherwise known as Bishop, California. There is Indigenous Women Climb. There's a whole slew of us that are working in the outdoor industry and in specific sectors or in specific sports, and our relatives as well. You know, our Black and Latinx relatives are also working in this industry to really decolonize and bring the industry to be accountable to our people as people of the global majority. So I'd highly encourage you to just continue to reach out to us as those partners like Natives Outdoors and Native Women's Wilderness, and then you know, we can continue to build together.
Well, awesome.
Yeah,
I think
thank you all for the opportunity to speak. Denali, I would ask if maybe you would drop the handles of a few of those organizations in the chat. I think that would be great for folks to follow along with them on Instagram. And yeah, Wopila Tonka Chichilo, just big thank you to everyone involved. Really appreciate being here. And Doksha K. Till next time.
All right. Thank you, Connor.
Yahweh, Connor, thank you so much.
All right. We've got about 3 minutes here. Him talking about partnerships with the outdoor industry and larger kind of ski and outdoor companies got me thinking. I remember years ago, one of my great grandmothers came into Washington, and to identify some objects at the Burke Museum. And she had come down, and we went to REI because everybody needed new boots in the village. And we go to REI, and we're kind of walking around, and she goes over and calls in the manager. Says, I want to talk to the manager of the store. And manager comes out, and she says, I want to talk to your manager. So we end up in this long conversation ending up with Sally Jewell, actually, who would then become the Secretary of Interior. And Mayapa said, all of your designs here are modeled after our clothing. All of your designs here look like our cuspucks. They look like our rain jackets. They look like the stuff that we've made for thousands of years. We're not getting anything from that. And so Sally Jewell said, well, okay, here's some jackets. And so everybody in the village got a new North Face jacket from REI. So they are willing to partner with you. Sometimes you just have to get a little bit in their face. So remember that.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who's sharing resources in the chat as well. Feel free to do that throughout the event today so that we can continue to connect.
Yeah, of course, please do that.
Were you wanting to offer a quick break, or are we done with our break?
Yes, if you guys want to take just a really quick, short 5-minute break, then we're going to come back and hear from Mike, and then we're going to keep moving on. So
I will pause the recording if someone can remind me to start it again.
Oh, good.
Thanks.
Are you still with us?
Mike has left the building.
Uh-oh. All right. Well, if you wouldn't mind coming on over, I'll let Chaz introduce you. But what we know about Mike is that he is very well respected and has done some great things. So Chaz, would you mind introducing Mike? And then we'll go into what you have to say about your Eagles program and some other initiatives that you've been involved with.
I can introduce Mike as well as I can, but he's really a man of mystery to many. But Mike's a great partner for the affiliated tribes, Northwest Indians, and for Indian country around the nation. He's a good partner works with ITEP, the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, a lot, and he assists in a lot of vulnerability assessment trainings that both of our organizations do or collaborate on. But in general, Mike's just a leader in Indigenous peoples on the issue of climate change. And he's been working with the Salish Kootenai tribes for a long time, probably since time immemorial almost. But I will actually let Mike do a little bit more of a self-introduction since he is much more qualified than myself. But Mike, we really are glad to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We really want to appreciate your message. So
thanks, Chad. You won't say that when you get my bill. I've been working for the tribe since the mountains were hills. I've been working for the tribe actually for about going on 39 years, different capacities. I started out as a tribal policeman, and then a game warden. I worked as a tribal game warden for about 12 years. And then I had this wild idea that I wanted to be a politician. I ran for tribal council. I served on tribal council for 4 years and decided I wanted to go back to school. So after 20 years after I graduated from high school, I went to Salish Kootenai College and got my degree in environmental science. From there, I worked for the Natural Resource Department for several years, and now I'm the department head for the Tribal Historic Preservation Department. And like Chaz said, I've known Chaz for several years. We put on the Tribal Climate Camp up here. We hosted that a couple of years ago. I've been associated with ATNI from way back when I was on council. That was 96 to 99. I know Don, I know Peggy. I've worked with those guys and ITEP. But I just had, I was wondering if you guys know what all the Indians said when Donald Trump lost the election. Anybody know? Chaz?
I can only guess.
At Biden. They all said Biden. You can use that one, Chaz, if you want.
Oh, I will. I will. Thank you.
So I'll start letting you guys know kind of back in 2012, we received some funding from the Great Northern Landscape Conservation Cooperative and the Kresge Foundation to start developing a climate strategy. We finished that process in 2013 in the fall. So we started September of 2012. We finished that document September of 2013. And I think we were like the third tribe in the United States to do that. Swinomish, I believe, was first, and I'd seen somebody from Swinomish. I think they were the first to develop a climate adaptation plan, and then I believe the Nez Perce were working on theirs when we started ours. Since then, I've helped probably 50 other tribes across the country, Alaska included, Alaska villages, and throughout the whole United States work on climate change planning. When was that? 2016, I received, I was invited to the White House by President Obama, and I received the White House Award. It's called Champions for Change in Climate Change Planning. The next year, I think 2017, I received another national award from the National Adaptation, what is that called? Conference. But really, I don't do it for the award, and I don't do it for the money. It's all about survival, about resilience, and about helping each other out. So during that whole process of developing the plan, I think it was, so we finished that process in 2013. In 2015, my brother Jim and I, Jim is right there in the outfit with the big fan. That's my brother Jim. He was the department head for the forestry department for the tribe at the time, and we came up with this idea. Well, we wanted to get the youth more involved and more engaged in what we were doing with climate strategy planning and stuff. So we came up with this plan, or this program called Eagles, and we just thought it up. It's Eagles. Eagles is Environmental Advocates for Global and Local Ecological Sustainability. I got some money from BIA to start that program out, and I really didn't want to tell the kids what to do. We came up with some ideas that we wanted to share with the kids, and we wanted the program to be K through 12 and beyond, so all inclusive. And I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's see, share screen.
So, as you may have to make him a co-host for that to work.
So while doing that, we just went around to the schools, and we came up with some ideas about recycling and community gardens and that type of thing. But we wanted it to be the youth that basically ran the whole thing. So did you get that?
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Yeah, try sharing your screen
Oh, so
at the bottom.
let me go. I'm gonna go open it first, right?
You want to open up your document and have it in the window and then go down. There should be a green piece kind of in the middle of the bottom of your screen that says share screen. And then you're going to click on that and it'll bring up a page with all of your windows on it. And whichever one you just opened that has your presentation, you want to click on that one.
So you can see that.
Yes.
That's a brochure that we developed. It has the mission and the vision, and I can share this with you guys if you're interested. Local climate change issues, Eagles. That is our logo there. So it was youth-led and tribally supported with BIA funding. Who are the Eagles? We had that, so it's the youth. Some of the projects that we recommended or that we thought we would introduce in the schools is recycling, community gardens. We had some goals and objectives, some planting. This is kind of an outline of an idea. So this is a garden. I was going to go to the tribal council and ask for a 1 acre plot so we could build these things. This is the garden, a teepee, a fire ring, a camas baking pit, dry meat rack, and we wanted to teach people how to can their vegetables and stuff. That really didn't take off so much. The recycling did. But recently, another program gave out how many? 80? Huh? 50? About 50 raised bed gardens. So what we learned from this whole thing was that trying to get people to take care of gardens is a challenge sometimes. A lot of gardens become Susie's garden, or whoever has to take care of it, because when the kids get out of school is about the time we're putting the gardens in, and they're doing all their things. So
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What did EAGLE stand for again?
Environmental Advocates for Global and Local Ecological Sustainability.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, questions are $5, answers are $10. Jokes. Where was I? What was a couple other things I was going to share? Oh,
we've been talking about how the kids were getting ready to get out of school and community gardens usually turn into personal ones.
Right. Yeah. So during that whole process, we had a contest where every school got to come up with their own logo for the Eagles program. On the back of the shirt, it was all the same. They had to have Eagles.
Two Eagles, if you have two Eagles.
Eagles that we designed, but on the front of the shirt, we had a contest in each of the schools, and the winner of the contest, I bought an iPad. So the winner won an iPad. This is Mission School, St. Ignatius, where this is a picture that my daughter drew. She won that one. And it wasn't biased. I didn't get to vote. So don't, Chaz, I saw you. There's a couple other things that I'm just going to share with you real quick. Another one that's cool.
That's our tribal high school.
This one is is a tribal school called Two Eagle River School. So everybody designed their own shirt. The program, when we first started the whole program, there was probably maybe, I don't know, 50 kids, 7 schools on the reservation. And by the time a few years later, we had over 200, like 250. My dream, my goal for the whole program was to eventually have a regional Eagles Summit, a national Eagles Summit, and an international Eagles Summit. I served as the chairman of the Regional Tribal Operations Committee for Region 8 tribes that worked with EPA. And I also served as the co-chair on the National Tribal Science Council at the time, and that's where I wanted to bring it nationally. And Renee, who I'll introduce next, she's going to talk more about the Eagles program. She really advocated and coordinated a lot of the, the groundwork and working with the schools in that program. But she had contacts that were international. So we were actually setting up Skyping with kids, Sami kids, and some of the kids from New Zealand. So I'm going to introduce Renee.
Show the Arlie thing.
Oh, she wants me to.
You wanted to.
Okay.
No, I don't know how to work it. Show the Arlie thing.
Okay. So one of the things that the Arlie school, they actually did an assessment. So all the kids got together and did an assessment in the school where they went around each classroom and actually looked at how much carbon was being used, how much electricity was being used. They all went, and every school did their own assessments on recycled containers, how many recycled containers, what size. So these kids went around the school and actually did an energy audit right here. And they figured out how many pounds of CO2 emissions and figured out how much the school would save in a year by replacing some of those things. And let's see, there's a couple of graphs here, right here, where they actually showed the school board classroom lighting. If you guys can see that, before taking action was 83,405 I don't know, pounds of carbon, is that right? And then after they took action, it was 63,464. So they actually went to the school board and showed them that, hey, if you guys do these things, you could save at least $3,406 throughout the year. The other thing they did was the recycling. So I bought a couple, or not a couple, I bought a enclosed recycle container for each school, and they did their own recycling. And this was the first month. You can see November is pretty low. So the kids would go around the school or the classrooms and pick up all the recycling. They'd put it in these trailers, and then I'd have to go get it and bring it to the recycle center and empty them. And it turned into kind of a contest between Arlie and Mission. So you see here where their recycle numbers went way up. My daughter was doing the recycling, and my son and some other kids were doing the recycling in Mission. But they would flatten the cardboard. They would arrange everything just so in the trailer to where they could get a whole bunch of stuff in there. So they were, when I bring the trailer up to the recycle center, they was recycling around 1,000 pounds to 1,200 pounds every time I go get the trailer. That's like twice a month. Arlie school wasn't doing that much, but after I showed the kids at Arlie what Mission's numbers were, you see their numbers went way up. So it kind of turned into a contest.
We have a question that's come up here, Mike, and that's that. How do you kind of get your foot in the door with some of these tribal schools? I know I've worked in the past as well with kind of tribal education programs, and sometimes it's hard to be able to kind of get in there. And so from Kyle left in here, we have, he was just wondering kind of what outreach looks like for tribal schools and how you kind of go about doing that.
Okay, I'm gonna let Renee talk about that. She kind of coordinated that with the schools.
Oh. All right, awesome.
Okay. Oh my God. X. I wasn't supposed to be talking, so. Hi, everybody. Well, partly I've been working for about 25 years. I directed an outreach program. So I knew everybody in the schools. That, not everybody, but that did help, I have to admit. The other thing, Mike has a lot of credibility on the reservations, and we were offering them something. So we went in we went in through the teachers, and we offered to work with them through their lesson plans. And so the key to me was to recruit a teacher advisor that would take the lead in being a teacher advisor to the clubs and the students. And so we offered to, because teachers care about their students deep down in their hearts. If you find a teacher that really, really cares. And so we offered them things that mattered to them. And so we recruited the teacher advisor, and then we gave them things that mattered in recruiting their students to go on field trips to like the tribal nurseries, lesson plans that the students were excited about. And to me, that was the key. And career, everything that the Eagles did, they got credit for in their career portfolios or lesson plans. And so that, to me, that was the key. We were just persistent, and we offered them something that mattered to their students and to the teachers. So we wove it in with what they were already teaching. That would be my answer. Does that sound right to you, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. So that's the answer to that question.
Well, thank you. That's good.
About the only other thing I can add to that is when we went into the schools, I ordered like 20 pizzas. It was kind of like the Pied Piper walking down the hallway with 20 pizzas and a bunch of kids, and pretty soon you have a whole line of kids behind you when you go to the classroom.
And the other thing is Montana, at the state level, we've had the Montana Indian Education Act for All for a number of years now. So there's huge pressure on the schools to integrate the Indian Education for Act into their lesson plans and curriculum. So we have that going for us in Montana. And then let's see, what I would say is the governor's office has, the Department of Education Quality has a Smart School Challenge. It has 8 categories. And in the last, since 2016, when we started, there's only one winner school for the different categories like energy and gardening and recycling. And we've taken, where did that list go? But anyway, our schools, the Eagle schools, have won every single year in some category. Usually we win in 2 categories. Arlee and St. Ignatius won, they tied one year for recycling. We've been the judges' pick in Arlee. And so Eagle schools have won, we've been the statewide champion one year. We've been the judges' pick. This last year, we won, 2 schools won in the gardening thing, and Arlee won in the energy conservation. So it's pretty amazing statewide that we've won all of that through. And then the Eagle students' career education, visiting our tribal professionals, having our tribal professionals go into the Eagle schools and talk about being range techs, and I don't know. So it's the partnership with the schools and the tribes, and they come up and present to the climate committee. It's been remarkable. So I think we should hear now from a real student. What?
Hey, Sam, how much time we have left?
Yeah, I think
we can go for a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Now we
I'm going to introduce my son, Michael Durglow III, and he was part of the Eagles program, so he'll tell you a little bit what they did in Mission.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Michael Derglow. When the Eagles started, I was a sophomore, and seeing that our school, we had a bunch of the what is that called, like the vending machines, you know. So every day kids would just get bottles, and I'd see them being thrown away. So and then my dad came up with the Eagles, which is pretty awesome. I loved it. But in 2015 it started. We only had a couple students, but like you said, the pizza would help bring students, maybe like one time, or but it was enough. And in 2016 through 17, we didn't get much started. We did put up hydroponic farms. Our middle school had one, and then we put one in our lunchroom. And the Eagles students would help plant and grow them, and then we'd have those in our lunches. The lunch ladies would use them in our lunch. It was awesome to see. And then 2017 through 18 was my senior year, and we did a bunch of stuff. We got new t-shirts, the teachers were actually stepping up, and we got an awesome, she actually was a tribal teacher. Her name is Miss McClure, and she stepped up and helped us a whole bunch with the recycling and just, you know, coordinating all of the stuff. But during those summers, we did some pretty cool stuff. We got to do a muscle walk around our Flathead Lake, which, if you guys don't know, it's one of the last fresh bodies of water, and it's pretty huge and beautiful. But and another thing was, where was that? We went down the Flathead River and did like a analysis of how clean the water is and how clean the banks are, and they were pretty clean, so we didn't have to go clean those up. But in our school, we had recycling within all of it, from elementary all the way up to high school. And every week or a couple of weeks, we'd collect it and put it in one of our my dad got an enclosed trailer for all the schools, and we'd see all the schools just like shove it and throw it in there, but we decided to smash it down and line it up and see how much we can get in there, and it was quite a bit. I think he was setting the bar a little low of 1,000 pounds. I think it was more like 1,500 pounds. So yeah, that's about. Oh, and this was the middle school got to take a tour of our tribal greenhouses and nurseries, which was actually pretty cool. I think it helps them get more into the recycling, because nowadays we do need we need a bunch of recycling. But yeah, that's about all I got. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael. I just had one quick question for you, and that was that, did you see, like, what do you think was the tripping point at which youth in your schools became involved with this? What do you think was that factor that pushed them to take part in these in this project?
Sad to say, it was the pizza.
Oh.
All the kids, usually when we didn't have something there, they wouldn't show up, but were dedicated. There's just a couple of them, but I think having more of those, well, nowadays because of COVID, you can't really go out to different places like the greenhouses and check them out, but having those was a huge help too. Just having something to look forward to, maybe like the t-shirts, I think got a couple students to stay too, because they really like the contest and the t-shirts. But it was kind of hard, but yeah.
Well, no, I appreciate the candor in that. One of my friends, Nikki Petrie, who runs the Center for Native American Youth, always says, there's two things that you can count on in youth organizing, and that's that swag bags and food are the only thing that's going to bring your crowd. And so I think that that's a good lesson for anybody organizing, is that you want to DM that, I think, to everybody, not just me. But I think that that'll be a good lesson. So thank you guys so much for coming in, for presenting on this, and I hope that you guys are able to secure more funding in the future. If there's any funders on this call, Mike is always looking to expand.
I just shared our website, so csktclimate.org. Eagles, I check with Chaz or Sam or any Coral. You guys have my email address. I'll send you anything you are interested in.
Mike, I'll share your email address in the chat box.
Sounds good. Thanks again for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you so much for presenting.
Was our concern with zebra quagga mussels coming from the east. So they were actually showed up in Montana about the same time the Eagles program started. And that's where we came up with this mussel walk. And I was going to make mussel shirts so that they could go on these mussel walks. The kids, we had them lined up along the lake, and they were just looking for zebra and quagga mussels in the shoreline.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Mike, and it's good to have you all here.
All right, so now we're going to be moving on. Well, actually, if anybody, we're going to be moving on now to our panel discussion, and that'll be with the wonderful Coral Avery, Denali Hodgdon. Damien, are you with us?